I don't know what's happening right now. What a terrible start to the show. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Drive Pink Dialogue. I'm your host, Scotty, and I'm here with my co-host, Saur. Today is episode number 160 after a disaster of an opening monologue, but that's okay. We will power through. It is also transfer deadline day. We will talk about that, and of course, Inter Miami is going to the semifinals of the League's Cup. But before all of that, Saur, my friend, my co-host, how are you feeling today?
Listen, you leave for 2 episodes and you forget how to do this. I should be the one taking the lead from next time onwards. But I'm doing well. Inter Miami's won. That's all that you can ask for. I've got my coffee ready. I've got my thoughts ready. I've got my awards ready. And the only bad thing is that Inter Miami hasn't signed anybody. But we can talk about that as well. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing fine. I feel frazzled after ending up in in the wrong spot of StreamYard where we're supposed to do this. So now I'm just going to be a professional and recover quickly. Let's start with something very easy and simple. Inter Miami going to the semifinals of the League's Cup, which means next weekend's game against the Chicago Fire has been rescheduled to September 30th. So anyone that had tickets to that game, it is a home game at Chase Stadium. It has been moved from next weekend. It would have been our MLS game next weekend. It is now being moved to the end of September, the fourth to last game of the season. That is going to be a busy week. We're going to have a very busy end of the season. I believe that's a midweek game. And so Inter Miami is going to be playing a ton of games in quick succession in MLS play. But ultimately, I'm going to hand it over to you while I figure out how to get the rest of this working right.
I have no idea what you're talking about because for me, it looks perfectly fine. But what I will say is that Inter Miami is going to be playing Orlando again. I don't know if I'm going to forgive Inter Miami for losing twice to Orlando and beating them the third time. But if that does happen, I think I'm going to be a lot more at ease having lost to Orlando twice. Now, God forbid we lose to Orlando for a third time this season. I think I'm going to quit the driving dialogue because that for me would be abysmal, atrocious, terrible, and awful. But let's not talk about what will happen or will not happen. I'm excited to play Orlando. I think the players are going to be excited to play Orlando. They want this revenge. And there's only MLS teams left in this tournament now. It's no longer a continental tournament, it's a MLS tournament. And the three teams that make it to the CONCACAF Champions Cup are all going to be MLS teams, which is honestly quite wild. This is Inter Miami's best chance to win a trophy this season, hands down. And we have to start with that Orlando game next weekend.
The Orlando game is Wednesday night. It's going to be August 27th. Great job. It's August 27th on Wednesday night. It is at Chase Stadium, so Inter Miami will host that game, and it is against Orlando City, as you said. I think maybe it's relevant to just state this now. Either the final or third place game will be a West Coast trip, which when we're talking about a big schedule and a lot of games to play, you don't love throwing in a West Coast trip, especially if it's a third place game, which really does become huge because it's a one-off for a CONCACAF Champions Cup spot. But either way, it's going to be huge. It feels much better if it's for a trophy. And the reason, as we all learned this morning, and some of us much later in the day, the knockout rounds are apparently just the semifinal and the final hosting rights are apparently determined by seeding through the phase one of the tournament. And since Inter Miami finished third, they will actually. I think they finished fourth. It's a mess. It's a total mess.
Third.
They finished third.
Yep.
They will be behind both the Galaxy and Inter Miami and Seattle Sounders in terms of hosting rights. So either whether it's the third place game or the championship, they will be on the road on the West Coast next weekend.
Yeah, and that's going to be a long trip. That's going to be a difficult game. So we'll see.
Stop. I have it right. You were wrong. They were second. Seattle gets the hosting rights because they finished first, and the LA Galaxy get the hosting rights because they are the MLS Cup champions, and they just get automatic hosting rights in the knockout rounds. And now we are organized and ready to go. But either way, Inter Miami will not host the final or the third place game. They do host next Wednesday against Orlando City. And if they win, then they just get to play for everything in a much more fun environment the following weekend.
It's a good thing only 27 people are watching us, and we can get all the mistakes out of the way right now before more people join in. I promise you guys, we've been doing this for a while. It's not our first time. Also, we did not coordinate our outfits. This is bad luck because the outfits and the graphics make it seem like Inter Miami absolutely dropped the ball in this game. So maybe we should have thought ahead of time about what we're going to wear on this podcast. But no, this is not a funeral podcast. This is actually a celebration of Inter Miami making it into the semifinal of the League's Cup. We actually won, guys. So believe it or not, we're actually very happy today.
Okay, also, I want to spend a few minutes before we get to the game talking about the deadline day deal. And I think it's not just today, but maybe a little bit of a bigger conversation about the window as a whole. We have plenty of games coming up. I don't think we're going to have time for a dedicated episode to the transfer window, at least not anytime soon. So let's start with this. Tuesday night or Tuesday during the day, we heard that Inter Miami was about to sign a young Argentine winger from Newell's Old Boys named Matteo Silvetti. We had talked about him in the spring. It's a name that's been connected to Inter Miami for about 6 or 7 months now. And Fabrizio Romano said it was going to happen, and then a couple hours later, he tweeted that it was a done deal. I have not seen many of the South American journalists actually report on this story. And Inter Miami has not confirmed his signing yet. And also, we haven't seen any pictures of him at the airport or anything like that. So I will remind everyone that is not officially official as far as we are concerned. And they only have a couple hours left. That window closes, I believe, at midnight tonight, Eastern time. So hopefully he's on his way to Fort Lauderdale, or he got there last night or today, and he did his physical, because just because Fabrizio Romano tweeted about it a couple days ago does not mean that Inter Miami has actually gotten all the paperwork through. And again, no one else has really reported on this. So we think it's going to happen, but we don't know if it's actually happened yet.
Listen, I love Fabrizio Romano, but he tends to be slightly off when it comes to Inter Miami transfers sometimes. So as always, we're in the darkest fans. Inter Miami doesn't necessarily communicate that well, but we'll find out. I will say this is a signing that's not going to immediately uplift the team. It's not going to immediately impact how we play. This is for us a signing for the future. Now, if this was a centre-back, I'd be a lot more concerned if it hadn't been signed so far. But it looks like we're not going to be able to sign a centre-back. So if this happens, it's going to be a cherry on top, but not necessarily the cake. And we're still missing the cake.
Cynical does say they don't have to announce it to the world, and that is true.
Correct.
They don't have to make an official announcement on their social media or anything like that, but they do have to get all the paperwork in. And again, we do normally hear, oh, this guy landed, he's in South Florida, stuff like that. So the fact that this all came together in 2 days, it's not a ton of time, as we know, for Inter Miami to go from agreeing a deal to actually getting the deal over the line. So keep an eye out on that one. It would be a real shame if that ended up being a signing for January instead of a signing for Sunday, right? Okay, and then moving on to center back, Gonzalo Piovi. That deal has fallen through. It's not happening. I don't really know what Inter Miami's plan was. They needed Cruz Azul to take less than half of the asking price. Cruz Azul didn't budge on that. And so there was no way Inter Miami was going to be able to fit him into the roster construction and maintain their sort of compliance. So that one's out the window. And because they only pivoted off of that last night, it makes me think that's it. So no center back, a couple wasted international roster slots, and I think it's a pretty anticlimactic end to the window for Inter Miami.
Don't worry, we'll sell the international roster slots for less GAM than we actually paid for them. So it's fine.
They expire. No, they expire. They are useless tomorrow. If they are not filled by tomorrow, they are useless.
I take what I say back, but regardless, I'm not mad that POV is not happening. I'm just mad the way this centre back saga has gone through has been completely unplanned. They must have known that Cruz Azul is not going to budge because the asking price was way too high, and I didn't have any confidence that we were going to make it work. And they should have been having these conversations much earlier in the window so that at least that way they have time to pivot. But looks like there's no time to pivot, and we're stuck with the two centre backs that we have, as I described them, the Choco brothers, and then two young centre backs that Javier Mascherano refuses to use, and Ryan Saylor. That's our centre back depth. Doesn't fill me with confidence. Going into the playoffs, I don't think this centre back roster is able to handle the pressure. And it's going to be very difficult for Inter Miami to put up a challenge, at least in the MLS Cup, with this centre back rotation.
Yeah, listen, it's not the depth. They have enough players. It's just, I
It's
think
the
we all
quality.
wanted one at the top
Yep.
that could push everyone down the pecking order a little bit. And that doesn't seem like it's going to happen. Now, again, there's still 5 hours, 5.5 hours until the window closes. So maybe there's something we don't see coming. If there was, I'd imagine it would be like within the league, so you wouldn't have to worry about paperwork. You wouldn't have to necessarily worry about getting sort of an untrustworthy physical from a foreign country. But I don't know. That doesn't really feel like Inter Miami style these days. So we will see. We'll keep an eye out for it, and maybe we'll be back live in a couple hours to talk about some new fantastic signing. But until then, I think we have to assume they're not getting a center back. I think maybe it's fair to assume they will get this Matteo Silvetti deal over the line, and then that would complete the transfer window. And so here I ask you the question, Saur. They sign Rodrigo de Paul as a phenomenal entrance into this signing window, into this transfer window. They end sort of on a high note with a young, exciting winger. But there was a lot of departures in the middle that I think made us feel not great. Obviously, David Martinez is a guy that we'd love to still have in this lineup. Drake Callender, I think we have talked enough about how important he could have been to this team. Leo Alfonso, a young guy that was not getting many minutes, but maybe we thought should have gotten more. And then Federico Redondo also leaving. That's the one I think doesn't hurt as much because DePaul is coming in and taking his exact spot. A lot of the other guys aren't really getting a like-for-like replacement. So some big losses, and it's really Rodrigo de Paul. Like you can't have a bad window if you sign Rodrigo de Paul, but considering the needs coming in, midfielder wasn't really one of them. You wanted a couple forwards. You wanted a center back. We could have talked about maybe upgrading a goalkeeper, and it feels like none of that's happening other than a lottery ticket sort of 19-year-old from Argentina.
Here's the thing. I think whatever signing we make in whatever position needs to be a significant upgrade to what we have available. Because depth-wise, this team is okay. And as you said, especially with the centre-back depth, we're fine. We have players and bodies available. It's the quality that's not there. So I don't want to just sign a player for the sake of signing a player. Rodrigo de Paul is an upgrade on any player that we have on this team, except Lionel Messi. That is a phenomenal signing and should automatically make this window a success. There are needs in this team. I don't know if Silvetti fits that need. So for me, that's a bit of a non-factor signing and a surplus to requirements. I think we needed
One for the future.
really
One for the
good,
future.
exactly, one for the future. I
It's
think
it's
we
a positive
needed-
one for the future, not a we don't
We'll
really care if he
see.
comes or not.
Honestly, they said Baltazar is going to be a positive as well. Didn't really add much so far. I think we needed a center back, but not because of the depth, but because of the quality and to upgrade the defense quality. It's hard to bring in such a signing in such a short span of time because it looks like they spent their entire time trying to get the Rodrigo de Paul deal across the line. So I don't care about the bodies coming in for the sake of coming in. I don't care about the signings happening for the sake of happening. I want it to be for an upgradation. So, yes, we lost a few players, but that still doesn't necessarily hurt this team as such. Javier Mascherano wasn't necessarily using some of those players. Redondo leaving, you called it correctly. Rodrigo de Paul replaces him. Obviously, I think it's more positive in the broader perspective because it gives Yannick Bright more minutes on the pitch. David Martinez leaving, I thought, was an issue, but I still think there's too many center backs in this team, and we need to at least get a center back that upgrades the quality and not just adds to the numbers.
It just feels like it kind of feels like it was unorganized. And the
Not
Rodrigo to
thought through.
Paul, the Rodrigo to Paul signing, I feel like is so different in how we'll judge it because that is a ownership led type of signing. It is a huge investment. It is we want to make sure we keep our studs together. We want to make sure Lionel Messi resigns. Like that signing is on a different sort of playing field than
It's
what
a
Javier
statement of
Mascherano.
intent.
No, that's not what I mean. What I mean is that's an ownership led signing, and then everything else is like a coach and like sporting director led signing, right? Like when you're filling in holes, when you're trying to marginally improve at center back, when you're trying to sort of grab a winger, like those are what the sporting director and the coach are supposed to go out and find and make happen. Whereas Rodrigo de Paul is like the ownership going out and saying we need to make a splash, we need to go make a big signing, and so they're going out and finding and recruiting and paying $17 million for a superstar. The smaller deals, that feels like it's on the front office and the sporting director and the coach to go find. And the fact that they would have known they would have needed a center back for the last 6 months. I mean, it became clear David Martinez was not going to re-sign, and they end up with no one. It's clearly a disappointment. They had talked about signing wingers since that Club World Cup 10-day window. They talked about signing 2 forwards back then, and they finish with sort of if they get this Silvetti thing across the line, it's like a sort of sign a U22 at the very end because we have space for him. This clearly didn't feel like it was the plan, or else they would have done it the day after they traded Redondo and opened up that spot. So, sold Redondo rather. So, I'm not saying the window was bad, but it feels like when you take one step below the surface, the front office, in terms of the sporting director and the scouting department and the coaching staff, doesn't feel like they really crossed the finish line on a lot of deals that maybe they were trying to make happen.
And you compare that to the winter window where I thought everything was very much organized. The signings were coming in thick and fast. And as you said, the signings driven by the sporting director, or at least the ones that we think were driven by the sporting director, the Allende, the Segovia, the Maxi Falcon, those were coming in. There was a plan. We were filling in positions that we needed to. But this summer window has been a little bit of a chaotic one, to say the least. And there's not been a direction in which Inter Miami seems to be going. If they knew they wanted to replace a defender out and out, I think we would have heard more rumors. It would have been more targeted, but it almost feels like it was a reactive sort of a window. And maybe it wasn't the plan. Maybe the plan was to let David Martinez go, and Javier Mascherano thinks we have enough defenders in this team. So if that's the case, then I can understand it. But if we were actually going out to acquire more quality players, it just didn't seem like we were already there proactively looking for those quality players. It felt like we were looking for market opportunities when and how they emerged. Depends on what the plan was. For me, on the outside, it didn't look too targeted, and that's why I'd give it a 6 out of 10, and 5.5 would be for Rodrigo de Paul, and then 0.5 would be if we bring in Silvetti.
Yeah, I don't think the sporting director or the coach gets high marks for this window because I just don't give them credit for the Rodrigo de Paul signing. That to me is Jorge Mas going out there and Messi's father maybe and Jose Mas and David Beckham and going out and recruiting a superstar and saying we'll put up the money for it. You guys just figure out how to make it happen, but otherwise we will make this player come to Inter Miami. But when you go a step down from that level, it's no longer Jorge Mas that's sort of guiding the scouting department on who to find. Everything below that is the scouting department, the sporting director, then the manager. And like you said, it felt very chaotic. The way they managed their international roster slots was, I think, embarrassing, especially now that we get to the end and we can see how it all played out. So we'll see. I will add, they can still sign free agents for another couple weeks. So maybe there's a way they will fill those spots. We saw that last year when they signed Oscar Stadi, who ended up being a very impactful player at Inter Miami. So it's not over, but it just feels kind of, like you said, chaotic in how this whole thing went down.
Yep, I agree with you.
As far as outgoings, again, still 5 hours until the window, 5.5 hours until the window actually closes. But it feels like David Ruiz, we heard him as a rumor, not leaving. Toto Aviles, we heard not leaving. Fafa Biko, we heard not leaving. Doesn't feel like any of those guys are actually going to be out the door in the next 6 hours. So I think we have our team. And it's just a matter of if they get this Silvetti deal over the line and get him in. And maybe we'll see him in a week or two.
Does that change a lot for you in how you view this team, the Silvetti signing?
I always get excited about a young sort of player coming in. And so for me, I think it's exciting. And I
I'm a
want to see
little
what he's like.
scarred by Javier Mascherano's talent ID. So maybe I'm less optimistic than you are. Even if the signing happens, it doesn't change much for me.
You know what it is? I agree with you, but I also don't want to be unfair to a kid. Just because kids
Absolutely.
before him failed doesn't mean I'm like I still want to give every kid a chance to really impress. So
And watch him play at least.
yeah, so I am going to maintain my excitement for Silvetti if he comes this window, and if he doesn't, well, that would be a real disaster. Okay, anything else on your mind before we get to this game?
No, it's time for the game recap.
Okay, Inter Miami goes into this game needing a win and without Lionel Messi. We weren't 1,000% sure if he was going to play or not, but I think we all would have guessed it was unlikely. He didn't train with the team in I've lost it today. In the days preceding this game, he did not train with the team. He is apparently sort of healthy-ish. Maybe he could have gone if this was the MLS Cup final. We don't know. But turns out about an hour and a half before game time, we get official word he's not starting. We didn't love the center back pairing, but I think across the rest of the 11, we felt pretty good about this lineup going in, and they showed us almost immediately why, because Inter Miami looked great right out of the gate in this game.
Three starting 11 players that I was a little bit concerned about. The centre back pairing, as you mentioned, and then Allende. First half, didn't have any issues. I thought Inter Miami played really well and took the game to Tigres, asserted their dominance, tried to be on the front foot, got the second balls, got the third balls, always competing, and much the better side in the first 45 minutes.
Yeah, and then they finally get the breakthrough. It's a 19th minute moment that makes the difference. It is Jordi Alba down that left side. He puts, I think, a cross in, and he gets a handball on Aquino, their right back. It is called a handball on the field. The referee immediately points to the spot. A couple minutes later, Luis Suárez steps up, and he buries it to his right. Goalkeeper guesses the right direction, but it's a perfect shot, and Inter Miami goes up a very deserved 1-0, it felt like.
Yeah, I think Inter Miami was doing everything right except actually creating the opportunities in the final third. We were getting the ball in dangerous areas, but it felt like Tigres was either heading them away. The crosses were not falling into the feet of the Inter Miami players. Allende was sending the ball to the moon. So there were a few issues here and there in the final third, but I thought Inter Miami deserved that luck because we created that luck for ourselves. Penalty for sure. Jordi Alba getting in a dangerous position, trying to do something in terms of a cross, and Aquino touches the ball with his hand. Fair call by all means, and I thought Inter Miami deserved to go up 1-0.
Yeah, and they controlled most of the first half. I thought that high press was really nice. We'll get into tactics in a few minutes. But one other note I wanted to mention, actually two other notes. 25th minute, Rodrigo de Paul kind of grabs his hamstring for a second, and I thought that was noteworthy when we started to see what he looked like in the second half. And then 45th minute, right before half, Talasco Segovia and Jordi Alba collide, and Jordi Alba clearly gets hurt. He tries, and he stays out there for the rest of the first half. He even tries to come out in the second half, but he immediately goes down injured. So we don't have an update on Jordi Alba's injury. It was a contact injury, so I think everyone is assuming it's not that serious, but it is something we will keep an eye on, and maybe that means there's a good chance we will not play him this weekend. But yeah, I thought the first half was really pretty good for Inter Miami.
And it was very simple. I think the two ways that Inter Miami was playing was On the ball, Sergio Busquets was splitting the defenders and staying very deep. I looked at his heat map, and he was literally playing as that third centre back when Inter Miami had the ball in
Yeah,
in
we'll
their
talk about
feet.
that.
And then moving forward, we were pressing really well. That midfield trio of Rodrigo de Paul, Yannick Bright, and Sergio Busquets, I think that was brilliant in the first half. The balance was fantastic. Almost played like a triangle with Yannick Bright having the freedom to do a lot of the pressing, and then Rodrigo de Paul assisting where he needed to. And also Sergio Busquets was very combative. For me, that was the key as to why Inter Miami was winning so many balls high up, getting some quick passes. And then the other thing was we weren't waiting on the ball. We were very vertical, we were very quick in getting the ball out immediately. That's why we turned the ball over quickly. We set the ball in motion quickly and got some really good chances in front of goal before Tigres was able to set into their formation. Unfortunately, we didn't create those clear cut chances or missed opportunities and didn't have good shots on goal. But other than that, Inter Miami was doing everything really well up until that final third point.
No, I agree with you, and I think that's the biggest criticism that we'll have of Inter Miami in that first half was they were getting the ball into the final third very quickly. I thought they were doing a good job of spreading it out. Some vertical balls to Allende, some to Ian Fray, some to Jordi Alba, a couple to Suárez, Rodrigo de Paul carrying through. So they were finding multiple ways to push the ball forward. Yannick Bright had a nice pass or two. So that part of the game, progressing it into the final third, I thought was very effective. I think they were a little lacking in terms of being able to create shots. But what I will say is, I think a lot of the credit for that goes to some of the Tigres defenders, both that left back and that left-sided center back. And I even made a note of it. Jesus Garza, the left back, and Purata, the left-sided center back. They had a number of like last sort of chance touchaways to dismantle Inter Miami's opportunity. So I thought it was more about them just making really nice plays than it was Inter Miami having no ideas. So I didn't come away super worried about it
And I
on the
think
rewatch.
the final third decision making was slightly lacking. I thought Ian Fray was fantastic getting to the final point, but then there were a couple of moments where he just hung on to the ball too long or didn't put in the right pass. Similarly, Allende, I thought, was a little bit slow to make that run on a couple of instances where Jordi Alba found him. So yeah, there were some issues, but I agree with you. It was a mix of both. Tigres being defensively on top and getting to the ball first, at least in the final third, and then Inter Miami not having that incisive vision in some instances. But I still thought we played a lot better than Tigres. And I remember maybe one moment that Tigres had from a long shot that Ustari just basically saw it go wide. Other than that, I thought Tigres didn't have much to offer in that first half, and the advanced stats show that as well.
Okay, getting into the second half, the first big moment, 61st, Ian Fray kind of steps weird, and it looks like he twists his ankle, and then he comes out of the game 30 seconds later. We will come back to that, but only 6 minutes after, 67th minute, it's sort of a soft entry ball into Angel Correa, who just takes a slow down touch and then pulls it past Gonzalo Lujan. Really poor moment from Lujan. He gets burned for pace, and Correa creates a one-on-one opportunity with Ustari. Ustari does get a hand on it, but not strong enough to deflect it away from goal. It kind of trickles into the back of the net, and all of a sudden, Inter Miami looks like the worst team in the second half, and their 1-0 advantage is gone, and it kind of gets to be squeaky bum time.
Do you want to guess? I don't know if you know this, but do you want to guess the possession that Inter Miami had in that second half?
35.
31%, which is a major drop off compared to the first half. Like literally the polar opposite of what we had in that first half. Very surprising. Don't know what was the intervening variable there. Was it Jordi Alba coming off? Was it
Well, we'll talk about that.
Rodrigo de Paul not fully fit? But Inter Miami clearly on the back foot the entire second half. Tigres clearly enjoying a lot more of the ball. Hit the post once, hit the post twice in the same shot. They were constantly getting good opportunities. I thought Ustari was very poor on that goal, but otherwise had a couple of good saves. That Lujan opportunity, let's not even talk about it because I don't think it was burning for pace.
Well,
He
we'll come
tried
back
to
to it, I'm
run.
sure. We'll come back to that moment. We'll save it for later.
Should not have conceded that goal, but poor second half from Inter Miami and got lucky in getting past Tigres in that second half.
Yeah, as you mentioned, 75th minute, Ustadi has a really big time save. 83rd minute, Yannick Bright has that moment where he dribbles into the box, kind of does a step over and goes between the defender's legs. Would have been potentially the goal of the season from an Inter Miami fan's perspective. And then the 84th minute, and I want to stop on here for a second. 84th minute, entry ball to Rodrigo de Paul, and he kind of just flicks a shot towards goal, but it bounces right off the hands of Aquino. I think it was the second handball of the game,
From him.
which is tough. It's not called on the field. They go to VAR. They check it. They award a penalty. Suárez hits it. We can go back to the goal in a second, but what I want to just make a note of, 84th minute handball, 89th minute is when Suárez actually scores, and it's the 90th minute by the time game restarts. So, what did you think about the goal? And then I will come back to why I just explained that in a second.
Luis Suarez goal penalty.
Yeah.
I thought brilliant penalty. Absolutely calm, composed, and well taken. No fear at all. No hesitation. Straight in the net.
Yeah. Okay. Inter Miami getting overwhelmed. I thought for much of the second half. Certainly Tigres looked like the team that was more likely to score as we got into the final 20 minutes of this game. And Inter Miami went from handball to penalty, took 6 minutes off the clock. That was not brought back into stoppage time. We saw even in stoppage time, Tigres was going for it. They had that incredible opportunity that hit off both posts. If they had gotten an extra 3 minutes of game time, I don't know how this would have gone. And so I did want to make a note of that. Inter Miami really kind of fortunate to have so much time in that 80 to 90 minute period, just sort of taken off the clock by the handball and the VAR and not seemingly added on to stoppage time, that it allowed them to sort of sneak through. And then ultimately, we talked about the post-to-post rejection for Tigres, but ultimately they were able to see it out. Not a ton of intensity in the last 30 seconds or so from Tigres. If they had an extra 3 minutes, I don't know if this game would have stayed 1-1. So Inter Miami, another kind of bailout period where they got a couple minutes just taken off the clock without any added at the end.
The football gods were definitely in Inter Miami's favor today. Now, is that because they want us to lose for a third time to Orlando and get embarrassed? Maybe. Or is that because our name is already on the trophy and we're going to win the League's Cup? Maybe. I want to think the latter. But sometimes in football, you need a little bit of luck to go your way. Inter Miami had the post thrice. They had the VAR twice. And then they had the timekeeper once. So, listen, I don't think anybody can say Inter Miami didn't deserve to win that game. But we did get a little bit of luck in our favor, and that's fine. You want to take that from time to time, right? I'm going to acknowledge it,
especially in knockout tournaments where you're trying to achieve a season-long goal. No, I think that's fair. And if you're a Tigres fan, I think you would feel maybe a little hard done by some of the moments. But overall, I thought this was a pretty even game, and you give at-home field advantage to it. You add the fact that we're without our best player, and you feel like Inter Miami deserved to win this game, I thought, just as much as Tigres, and they get the result at home. Okay, we talked about this a lot, but let's get into it in more detail, or we've mentioned it a lot. First half, Inter Miami looked excellent. I actually thought they stopped looking so good after about the 33rd minute. I thought even the last 10 or so minutes of the first half, Tigres kind of grew into the game. But let's start with that first half an hour or so. They were really good. They pushed the tempo. They got high up the field. They had a press, which we don't see a ton of from Inter Miami. They were able to win balls. And I thought the biggest thing was Tigres did not know how to handle it, and they certainly were not expecting it. And so I want to give Javier Mascherano credit, because that was the game plan coming in. They executed it. They got the goal from a handball, but that's what you want to do when you come out with an early blitz. Go in, get an early lead, and then you can readjust after and try and see the game out. They do the blitz, they get the goal, and it looked pretty good for a while there.
It was coordinated. It didn't seem like Inter Miami was just running and trying to press arbitrarily. Everyone seemed to have an understanding of where they needed to be. The structure was in place. There was coverage all across. There was a reason Lujan and Maxi Falcone did not get turned around in that first half. One was Inter Miami had more of the ball, and second was that everyone understood where they needed to be at all times. Ian Fray, for however much he was venturing forward, was also getting back on defense to make sure that Lujan doesn't get completely caught out 1 versus 1. Jordi Alba was not as actively involved in the final third that as I had initially thought. He was also fairly, I think, midway across. So everyone understood where they needed to be. The spaces weren't that easily available for Tigres to exploit. And what Inter Miami did really well was the midfield structure. I thought that was, for the first time in a very long time, it didn't feel like we were relying on individual brilliance in the midfield, but rather everyone was complementing each other. All three players in Rodrigo de Paul at the tip of the 10, Yannick Bright in that 6, and Sergio Busquets in that 8, whatever he wants to do, Sergio Busquets' role. And that for me was why Inter Miami was so effective, pressing when they needed to and turning the ball over and then quickly hitting Tigres when they're completely off guard.
Yeah, I want to come back to the defensive part of that in a second, but I think you nailed it going forward. They were pressing in unison. And there was even a moment where Rodrigo de Paul really goes high up into the penalty box, and he turns around and he's lambasting the midfield for not going with him. And it kind of stood out because it was the one time that they didn't all go in unison. So I agree with you. I thought the press and just being able to force Tigres to play through them high up the field, or at least high up the field for Inter Miami, I thought it disoriented Tigres, and they weren't able to handle it particularly well. There's a couple times where they just kind of booted it high, and our center backs, like, that's actually something Maxi Falcone is okay at. And then you bring in Ustari's ability to sweep up into the game. Ian Fray had a couple moments where he was chasing back and doing really well. So I thought the structure offensively was really nice. The other key difference, and this is something I really wanted to spend a minute on. Week and a half ago, we played Orlando, and it was, I think, the same 11. Maybe Noah Allen started instead of Maxi Falcone, but basically the midfield, the front line, the defense, it was all the same. And they had this very weird system where Ian Fray, and the reason why I think this is important, Ian Fray on the right, Jordi Alba on the left, no Messi. We saw it again last night. We saw it a week and a half ago against Orlando. They let Ian Fray and Jordi Alba go forward a lot in that game. And they asked the defensive midfielders, Busquets to the right side to cover for Ian Fray, Yannick Bright to the left side. They asked them to fill in and make a back three where they were the outside player. And it looked very disorganized. It did not look like, not just Busquets and Yannick Bright not getting back at the right time, but the center backs also didn't look like they quite understood where they were supposed to be covering. This game, they scrapped that, even though, saying, again, Ian Fray on the right, Jordi Alba on the left, no Messi in the lineup. They scrapped that, and they decided if Ian Fray or Jordi Alba are both going to push up, Sergio Busquets just drops into that back line. You create that same middle three, but now all three guys had a much better sense of which positioning they're supposed to be taking up, who's their guy, much better decision-making on exactly where they need to be. And Busquets sits into that role naturally and is also not taken out of possession when you do turn the ball over, like he kind of was when you shunted him out to that right back role. So I thought, to me, that was strategically the biggest difference in how this team defended. Even though they were pushing numbers up the field, they were still sort of solid in the back, not leaving a ton of space because of that one change. Busquets, instead of trying to go out and cover at right back, he just filled in the middle, and the two center backs split out, and everyone just understood their role much better.
Yeah, as I said earlier, I looked at Bussi's heat map to understand what his positioning was in that game, right in the middle of the two center backs, a big red circle in there. And that was mostly when Inter Miami was on the ball. Entirely so. When Ian Fray was running up that side, Busquets was just chilling in between the center backs. As soon as we lost the ball, he was high up again, alongside Yannick Bright and Rodrigo de Paul. But there was clearly an instruction there, and I enjoy that. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. You can commend Javier Mascherano for trying something different against Orlando. It didn't work. Yes, You can crucify him for not changing the tactics when he should have, but at least he tried something different. Today, he
And
tried something that actually worked, and
well,
I
and
liked that.
this is more traditionally what Inter Miami has done
Yeah.
in these types of situations. But again, he went back to what works, and it worked in this game. And I thought, like, I don't know how many times this year we've seen Fray on the right, Alba on the left, and no Messi in the team. We saw it against Orlando City a week and a half ago, and it didn't look pretty. We saw it for the first time since then last night, and I thought it was significantly better. So we've always talked about Busquets potentially playing in that middle of a back three, as long as you got pacey guys around him, which we didn't necessarily last night, but it didn't kill us. Like, he can handle that spot defensively, and it gives you a little bit more structure. And then again, when you want to make it busy in the midfield, you're doing it with DePaul and Segovia and Yannick Bright instead of Sergio Busquets. So I think that's just a much better sort of way to play, and it certainly paid dividends last night. Okay, let's get to the second half because it was much worse. They stopped pressing high almost entirely from the first second of the second half. They sat much deeper. It felt like they were very content to let Tigres have the ball. I should say, we did not mention this on the pregame show. We did not mention this on the Raw reactions. I don't know if you even heard this. Someone in the chat mentioned it and after party last night. There's a fire going on in the Everglades a couple miles from Chase Stadium, and it's gotten worse. I think it's still going on right now. So the air quality, there was some smoke blowing towards Chase Stadium. The air quality, not that good last night at Chase Stadium. So I was a little harsh on people like Rodrigo de Paul. Generally speaking, we talked about how the energy levels dropped off a lot. And you know what might just do that? Really poor air quality. So I just wanted to mention that before we talk about what I think was the biggest difference. Inter Miami stopped trying to play high up the field. They were content to let Tigres have the ball. They sat back and played a much more conservative style, potentially because the air quality wasn't great and guys weren't particularly energetic.
And it's so interesting because Javier Mascherano does this thing where he goes one way extreme when it comes to offensively pressing, and then the other way extreme when it comes to just completely sitting back and absorbing pressure. What happened to the midway route where you can actually control the ball by having possession? Because this team can actually have possession and hold possession. You have Sergio Busquets, who's really good at holding the ball. You've got Rodrigo de Paul, who's good at holding the ball. You've got Suárez, who can play with the ball. You don't have to keep going out pressing the entire second half. You can make the other team more tired by just holding the ball a lot more, being conservative in that way. Instead, Javier Mascherano decides to sit this team back a lot in terms of the defensive line. And I know you want to say something, so I'll let you do that. But that, for me, is one of the reasons why Inter Miami struggles so much on defense, because these center backs are unable to deal with pressure coming onto them.
I think you nailed it. It's the center backs. In order to hold possession in a sort of non-threatening way, you need to be able to spread out the field so that you have room and you can create passing lanes to actually do that for yourself. If you're really tight in your own box, it becomes very difficult because there's not a lot of space. But the more you spread out, the more space you put between the lines, the more you're exposing a potential error and you're forcing your center backs to defend one-on-one situations. And as we've talked about plenty of times, and as we saw in the second half, they're not good at that. So our answer would be to change personnel so you have guys that are good at that. But of course, that's not what they do. So from the personnel, I can understand why that becomes the default game plan. It's also something that I think Javier Mascherano just, like, that's his natural inclination. So, but that's what happened. That's why they were so much less impressive in the second half. They tried to hold that 1-0 lead.
Right? You say that they can't spread out. When they do spread out, they're not able to play and defend one-on-one. I think Scotty's frozen. Okay, you're back. They can't defend one-on-one, but also, like, when we do try to play compact with them, they still can't do that. So what do they do well, right? It's a conundrum that needs to be fulfilled soon. But anyways, I just wanted to
maybe the next 4.5 hours, right? 5.5 hours. No, so you understand why that's the decision in the moment, but you kind of question all the decisions that led you into that situation. But basically, Inter Miami didn't have much of an attacking threat. I thought they did step up a little bit in those last 10 minutes or so. It didn't feel like they really wanted to go into penalties. We talked about the Yannick Bright sort of step over through the legs moment, and then obviously creating the handball that leads to the goal. But I think Inter Miami kind of got lucky with the timing on everything. Again, we talked about a couple minutes just coming off the board for the VAR review, but 89th minute Suárez goal. If you're going to get a winner when you're not playing that well, that's the minute you want it in, because you don't leave a lot of time for Tigres to come back and sort of overwhelm. They made a lot of attacking subs after that. We finally saw Gignac in the 90th minute. And so like it all kind of went to as well as it could have for Inter Miami, and they escape with a 2-1 win on penalties.
Escape had the divine hand on top of us, whatever you want to call it. I think Inter Miami came out of it, and I'm not complaining. Sometimes you can get very lucky in football, and we complain a lot. So when you do get lucky, you should just be thankful and move on and not question it too much. So very happy that Inter Miami was able to see this game through.
Yes. Okay, let's get to Tigres, because not that we're going to see them anytime soon, but I'm sure we probably said that a year ago in the Leagues Cup, and here we are a year later seeing them. The one note I really had for them is, again, I mentioned it, I thought their left back, Jesus Garza, was so good defensively. He had like 4 or 5 moments, one-on-one, sort of last man, has to make a play, and he just gets the toe in or just makes the interception. I was really impressed with his performance, especially in the first half. I thought he derailed a couple of our most promising opportunities. And then Juan Purata also had a couple sort of tackles, especially on a really nice Allende situation, where he just kind of had to make a play, and he did it. And so those two I wanted to give real credit to, because I thought they kept Tigres in the game in the first half, or at least kept Inter Miami from getting real clear-cut opportunities.
But also, I think we need to contextualize this. This Tigres team could potentially go top of the Liga MX if they win their game in hand. This is a very quality team. They have so much quality in the midfield. You already mentioned Burrata. Their other midfielder is also very good. The fact that we were able to overwhelm them that significantly in that first half is no joke. This is not a regular Liga MX team that Inter Miami should have just completely blown out of the water. So it's okay that we needed a little bit of luck to beat them. I think that for me was the biggest talking point. It's fine that you weren't as clinical as you would normally be against this team. This is a good Liga MX team. And they, on any other day, they could have beaten us. I'm just glad that this time it was 2-1 in our direction, not 2-1 in their direction. Of course, Angel Correa did have a little bit of a say, almost got the opportunity to finish it off for Tigres. I don't remember whose shot it was that hit the post twice, but that player must be kicking himself.
I think that was Diego Lainez. Oh, no. That was one of their subs that had just come on.
Yeah, but Lainez was also very good, I remember. I thought he
had that,
really good.
He had that shot from like 35 yards that skid off the post.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I thought Jordi Alba did pretty good on Diego Lainez.
Yeah. But
Sean mentions
a competitive team.
Yeah, Sean mentions Juan Bruneta, who I also thought was fantastic. Yeah. And then we already talked about Correa, who was their best player by like a real margin in terms of threatening danger. He gets the goal, but some of their best opportunities, you mentioned that the moment where we get the post-to-post rejection, that came from that would have been an assist for Correa. So like he was their guy. He was their danger man. And a couple of times our defense had to sort of make last man challenges on him. And I'm happy we don't have to play them again. And I think if we had to play that game in Mexico, it would have been a much different story.
And I don't think we would get the luck again.
Okay. 2 more talking points. One of them I think we can do quickly. Substitutions. Inter Miami goes with the Noah Allen one. It was forced. I thought he played pretty well in that second half. Again, we didn't see a ton from him going forward, but that's not what Inter Miami was trying to do. I did think Kramaski, who came on in the 63rd minute maybe, had 1 or 2 poor touches, but was otherwise like a pretty nice outlet and able to press a little bit and just make it a little tougher for Tigres. I thought Cello was really bad from the first second he came on. And then we saw Toto Aviles at the very end to close out the game. I would have liked to see Fafa Pico at some point in that second half.
Absolutely.
Because he's the perfect type of player when you're in your own box to make those vertical runs in behind. We saw that a lot from Tadeo Allende in the first half, but he was gassed in the second half. and he should be replaced by Fafa Picault in the 60th. He should be the guy that comes off in the 60th minute for Fafa Picault, who can do the same things, except maybe has better touch. And also, I think maybe all that yelling Suárez would do at him might fire the rest of the team up. So not good for Fafa, but it might work for everyone else. That's sort of my opinions on the substitutions. I think Fafa should have come into this game at some point.
No, I'd clearly written down as well. No Fafa Pico was a bit of a travesty because I thought he would have been really effective in this game. Honestly, he should have started, but sad not to see him play. Kramaski, I thought on second watch was fine. A little bit better than I thought initially. Had a couple of good balls into the box that maybe if Suárez ran into, there would be an opportunity there. But as you said, an outlet nonetheless, and offered a little bit of legs in the middle. Noah Allen, I thought, was solid defensively for large parts. There were a couple of moments where I thought he was a little bit out of sorts, but then recovered well. And overall, I thought Inter Miami in the second half, the substitutions had a lot to do because they came in at a time when Tigres was on top of the game. So didn't hurt us because we ended up winning the game. So that's all we can ask for. But Cello Wigant, my eyes are on you. My eyes are on you.
And then the last thing we got to talk about, because of how ridiculous and CONCACAF it is. We haven't mentioned it for the Leagues Cup much, but this is a CONCACAF tournament. We mentioned it every time in the CONCACAF Champions Cup. Something weird virtually happens in every single game of a CONCACAF tournament. And that happened last night. Javier Mascherano, red card coming out of the half for things apparently he did as he was walking into the locker room at halftime. And he just decides, I'm going to go 10 feet behind me and sit on the nicest chair. Took someone's seat, I'm sure. I hope that person got some free tickets later in the season because Mascherano stole his spot. And he's barking orders. Eventually, we see him on the phone. And then the camera, 5 seconds later, looks at the assistant coach, who's clearly getting orders from Javier Mascherano. And then, turns out, that's not even against the rules, according to
I told you, man.
The people
I
at
told
CONCACAF,
you.
So.
I said it in the post-game reaction. I don't think it's against the rules because nobody would think that someone would do that. That reminds me of the iconic photo of Arsene Wenger when he got sent off and he just went and stood there in the stands and he was just doing that for Arsenal. That was really funny. But this was a step further because Javi Mascherano was still able to bark orders and get his instructions through. I love the fact that Taylor Twellman absolutely lost it. It was just so funny. And now that there's not going to be any consequences to it, I would have it no other way. That was just hilarious. It was enjoyable. And Javier Mascherano should do that again because it was fantastic to watch.
Yeah, well, he will be suspended for the Orlando City game. I have a feeling there's going to be an addendum to make sure he's not anywhere near the field. One thing I will say about Javier Mascherano, he is very active as a coach. Like, he's constantly yelling at players to do this or that or this or that. And he didn't slow that down at all, despite getting the red card. A lot of coaches will just sort of let their game plan flow and then make an adjustment or two as things go, but they're not constantly barking orders like Mascherano does. So he clearly couldn't let it go. And I have a feeling he might get a little bit more than 1 game suspension for it. But if it helped the team win last night, I'm all for it, right?
Absolutely. If it was his tactics that won us that penalty, then yes, all for it.
Yeah, I don't know if he was positively impactful in the second half at all, but maybe they needed him on the touchline to tell him to go press higher. But we'll see. Oprah's side says deal just confirmed for Gonzalo Piovi. So, Saur, any final thoughts on this game before we get to awards? And I will go check Twitter to see if anything crazy just happened.
No, for me, Inter Miami needed to get stuff done. They did really well in that first half, did not do so well in that second half, but alas, luck was on our side. We got the result, and on to the next round. Orlando, here we come. Let's talk about awards.
Before we do, Luca Bendoni, who I'm not intimately familiar with, but again, we don't buy a lot of players from Mexico, so he is a journalist, just tweeted out 8 minutes ago that Inter Miami reached an agreement in principle with Cruz Azul for center back Gonzalo Piovi. The fees in the region of $6 to $7 million US. Again, I still don't know how that works. He says the clubs are working on documents as they hope to seal it before the MLS deadline. It's still uncertain. So maybe we will be coming back for that late night episode for this one, but we'll keep an eye on that as we get to awards. I know you just said you have nothing else, so Saur, let's get to awards, and let's start by saying on this show we give out 6 awards after every game. Heron of the match, Heron that flew north, and 2 individual awards each. Because you went first last time, I will go first this time. And I will say I had a ton of trouble with this. I was watching this game, and if I had to give an award after halftime, it would have been one player. If it was after 60 minutes, it would have been a second player. If it was after 75 minutes, it would have been a third player. But because I gave it after 90-plus minutes, I am giving it to Luis Suárez, who does have the decisive moments in the game. And I thought he was as calm, cool, and collected as a player could be on his 2 penalties. So I'm going with Luis Suárez, Heron of the match. And I have a fun fact that I will get to as soon as I get your response to his performance in this game.
2 penalties, 2 very well taken penalties. Fantastic. Under pressure, no fear, absolutely calm, gets the job done. I agree with you in this. I thought overall he was very pivotal in that first half in putting that press forward, distributing the ball, spreading it out. Second half, a bit of a non-factor, but if anyone needs to take a penalty in crunch time and Messi's not on the pitch, you give it to Luis Suárez 9 times out of 10, and he's going to get the job done. I think that was the right decision. I had a couple of others that I thought maybe could have snuck through. Sergio Busquets, I thought was fantastic. Yannick Bright, I thought was fantastic. But I think Luis Suárez deserves it.
Yeah, like I said, I thought of Ian Fray for the first 60 minutes. I thought of Busquets. I thought of Yannick Bright. But I think my biggest sort of indicator of who is the man of the match is the game-changing moments or the catalyst for a game-changing tempo. And for me, in this game, it was Luis Suárez with his 2 penalties that I thought he took really well. Can we agree he's in good form now? Or like pretty good form now? Like, I don't think anyone's complained about his game in like 3 or 4 weeks now. Like, I think everyone feels pretty good about it.
I said it in the last episode. I thought Luis Suárez has been in a really good purple patch of form. He's getting impactful in games. He's getting involved. May not be getting the goals, but I think he's doing some stuff that's looking good. And I agree with you. I will criticize him when he's bad, but when he's good, I will give him the flowers for that. And I think he heard your speech when you gave it a couple of months ago on this, not months ago, maybe a month ago. And he thought to himself, listen, I'm a great player. And I've done great things in the sport. Yeah. No, I agree with you. I think he's getting up there in form, and hopefully this can now start converting into goals as well. I will say always looks a lot better when Messi's not on the pitch, which for me is a big thing. But hey, if that's the case, then that's fine, because Messi wins it for us when he's on the pitch, and when he's not on the pitch, Suárez wins it for us. So I don't necessarily disagree with you on this at all.
Okay. I have a stat that I think is interesting. Would you agree Luis Suárez was phenomenal last year?
Oh, yeah.
Last year he finished with 37 goal contributions. You want to guess how many he has right now this year?
25?
28. He's on pace to finish with right around the same number of goal contributions as he had last season. Obviously, it's a little trending towards the assists as opposed to the goals this year. But the numbers are starting to come through. You mentioned he's in sort of a good form. There was a lot of complaining for a guy that might end with almost the exact same stat line this season as he had last season, at least across the board. I agree with you. I think he's playing better without Messi. I think it just allows him to be much more of a creator. But again, in terms of impact on the game, 28 goal contributions this year, man. That's a lot. That's a lot.
How has he done that? Bloody hell. But good for him, man. Good for him.
Yes. Okay. Heron that flew north. What you got for us? Actually, before you tell us, I will explain the award For anyone that hasn't seen the show before, the heron that flew north goes to the player who was doing the wrong thing. Because if you know anything about Florida herons, you would know they do not fly north for the winter. They don't fly north at all. So if you catch one flying north, you caught one doing the wrong thing. And in that essence, Saur, for this 2-1 victory against Tigres, who was the heron that flew north?
It was none other than the Lord himself. Drum roll, please. Lord Lujan has to be. Next award. I will say I struggled with this one, and I was struggling to figure out who I want to give it to. I didn't think there was a particularly poor performance, and I thought of an award for Lujan in case he doesn't win the Heron That Flew North award, and I named that award One Bad Apple Award because I thought over the course of 90 minutes, Lujan was actually not bad at all. But he had that one bad apple in that moment of madness where he tries to take on Angel Correa and just completely gets turned inside out, leaves a gaping hole in our defense and allows him to get the better of him. It wasn't a turn of pace from Correa. It wasn't that he was doing tricky feet. He just literally gave him room to go. He turned around thinking that Correa is going to be somewhere else, and he just opened up the entire gate. You know, like the Trojans allowed the Greeks to enter with the horse. That's what Lujan did in that instance. So maybe the Trojan horse would have been really apt as an award name as well. That deserves a Heron That Flew North award. That really does. That one moment of magic. Oh, madness. Sorry.
Yeah, he steps up, not anywhere close to taking the ball. Angel Correa he gets a little tiny bit of a touch just to slow it down, but really he just lets the ball carry him, bodies off Lujan, who's not even in a position to make a play yet, and then just runs around him. And I think the real frustrating part is Lujan kind of like jogs to catch up. It's not a deadbolt sprint to get into a position. And then once he's beat him, it's just one-on-one with Ustari. Like I can go to Ustadi and say, if it hits your hand, you should save it. But the truth is, like, that's a one-on-one with Angel Correa. Like, that's a good player. I'm not going to blame Ustadi really for being in that situation.
Exactly.
That's all on Lujan. And I agree with you. I thought he was having a pretty solid game up until that point. Like, he was doing what he had to do. And I was getting ready to praise him. And it feels like every time that happens, something like this happens where it's just an inexplicably bad moment from a professional soccer player. But otherwise, I thought he was pretty solid. So, yeah. But like I said, for my heron of the match, it's all about the game-changing moments. And this was, for worse, the game-changing moment. And so, yeah, I think Lujan's the right choice.
All right, what's your first award, Scotty?
My first award is the Defense Wins Championships Award.
Did you give it to Maxi Falcon? I had such a good award for him. Don't give it to Maxi Falcon, man. Okay, you've given this to Maxi Falcon.
It is not Maxi Falcon.
Oh, okay, good. Yannick Bright.
I'm giving the Defense Wins Championships Award to Ian Fray.
Oh, interesting.
Because our defense got so much worse when he left the field.
Yeah.
I have this year, especially in the first half of this year, I think I did a lot of defending for Chelo Weigant because I think he's better than a lot of people think he is. But since the Club World Cup, and I don't know if he must be injured because it's almost inexplicable how quickly and dramatically he got so much worse. But he's been a disaster defensively since the Club World Cup. And I think it's so bad that I think the difference between Ian Fray and Chelo Weigant defensively is maybe bigger than between them offensively at this moment. And I never thought I would say that. But he is such an upgrade defensively. He makes Lujan look like Lujan looked great until Chelo came on.
That's actually so true. That is so true.
And so the Lujan Chelo that's a disaster, but okay. It's not about Chelo, it's not about Lujan. Ian Frey's the best defensive right back on this team, even when he's doing all his offensive responsibilities.
I think Ian Fray is probably the best defender in this team. Maybe after Allen.
Maybe.
Who else
On
is
the back
there?
line. On the back
On
line.
the back line.
Yeah.
No, he's brilliant. He's brilliant. And he's just he runs like a gazelle. He has the strength of a gorilla. No, well, he's not that strong, but he's silky smooth. The way he plays is just so brilliant to watch. This is a special player, man. I don't know how long he's going to be at this team, and I don't know how is he still here, because I would definitely taught him to go to Europe, but he's just so good. And I had an award for him as well. Mine was probably as bad as yours, so it's fine that you gave him this. But
You just say it
there's
was as bad as mine.
yeah. This is a very poor name for an award. But I will say there's a
Dude.
very bad.
Did I not mention that we just won a quarterfinal and now we're on the way to winning a championship in a
Okay, fair
tournament? Of course
enough.
this makes sense. I wouldn't give this for an MLS game. Come on.
Okay, fair.
Give me a little
I will
credit
say though, there's a
By the way, pause. Hold on.
misrepresentation.
Pause. I think Mark Gonzalez is great, and I am so happy every time he fills in or he can be on the show, because I think he's got a really good brain for this. But I was listening to that episode last week, and you said he was better at guessing your awards than I was, and I think that is wrong. And I just want to make sure you know that, because I'm so good at guessing your awards.
I needed to get my word in. You abandoned me for 2 episodes, so of course I had to get a word in. Regardless, there's a misrepresentation in Inter Miami folklore that Chelo Wegan is a better defender than Ian Fray. That needs to end right now. Taylor Twelman, I know you're listening. That ends right now. I'm telling you right now, Ian Fray is a better defender than Chelo Wegan. Believe it and own it. All right, it's my turn, right?
No, I want to talk about Ian Fray more, because we didn't talk about him going forward at all in this game. And I thought he is so impactful there too, because by pushing the ball to the right and giving the opposition team something to actually focus on, it gives you more space for Jordi Alba down the left, and it really just opens up the whole offense. Just like Yannick Bright was a fundamental piece to this team late down the stretch last season, I think we're going to get to a point where Ian Fray becomes one of the critical pieces to this team, because of what he does, both going forward and defensively. He shores up your defense in a way that, like, I don't know if any individual player can do on that back line. And he opens up just entirely new dimensions going forward. And then the other thing I wanted to say is, and this is not just a this game thing, it's been trending this way, but it's never felt to me last season or the early part of this season that the rest of the guys really trusted Ian Fray going forward. It always felt like they were a little hesitant to make that pass, or Messi was like, I can either dribble or make the pass. Those balls are starting to go to the right more because they're building trust in Ian Fray. So I think he's going to be like the keystone piece for this team. And if he's not in, we're going to look much worse. And if he is in, we're going to look much better as we get into the second, sort of the last portion of this season.
I'm just glad he's back from injury, and I think he's going to be very impactful for this team for the next 2 months, even longer.
Okay, what is your first award?
My first award is the Divine Comedy Award.
The Divine Comedy.
It's a book by Dante Alighieri.
Yes, I know, but I'm trying to figure out what the implication of that would be. It's a very old book about the fiery infernos of hell. This is Tadeo Allende, because that's where he is.
No. The thing is, you've half understood the assignment. It's not just about the fiery infernos of hell. There's 3 books within Divine Comedy. There's the fiery infernos of hell, there's Purgatory, and then there's Paradise.
Mm-hmm.
Maxi Falcone for me is Divine Comedy in every single sense of the book. Some days he'll be living in Inferno and making our lives miserable. Some days he's just going to progress to Purgatory, where you're like, oh, I don't know how I feel about his performance. And then some days he's living in Paradise. Yesterday I thought he was living in Paradise. I thought he was brilliant yesterday.
I did too.
Very, very good performance from him. Fantastic. And Divine Comedy, because, of course, he's one of the Choco brothers. Divine Comedy because he has multiple different levels to his game, and we don't know which one we're going to get. And Divine Comedy because I think yesterday he finally picked himself out of purgatory and put himself in paradise. It's only a guess whether he takes himself back to purgatory or inferno next game, but at least this time we got the better side of Maxi Falcone. Well done, man. Thank you for having a good performance.
Great award. So
Thank you.
claps to you for that. And then claps to Maxi Falcone because I thought this was his best game maybe since
In
the
a
Club
while.
World Cup.
Yeah.
He was everything he was in that Club World Cup. Physical, demanding, in guys' faces, made it difficult. Exactly where he needed to be. The only thing he was missing was being on that back line to save a goal. But the post did it for him. So I thought this was an excellent performance from Maxi Falcone, and I think you nailed it. Like, I don't have any faith he's going to do it in the next game, but I'm going to enjoy it while it happens.
Absolutely.
Okay, my second award is the That's My Boy award.
You gave it to Yannick Bright.
Did you have a good one for him?
I had a good one for Yannick Bright. I had a
Well,
very good one for Yannick Bright.
Sucks to suck. You should have given it first. I don't know if you knew this, but Yannick Bright's dad was at the stadium last night.
Yeah.
And so, his dad was going, "That's my boy." I don't know if he speaks English, but maybe in Italian he was going, "That's my boy," because Yannick Bright was awesome. I thought about him for Heron in the match. I think if the game ended after 85 minutes, I would have given it to Yannick Bright. But man, if he had converted that goal, that run into the box, and it was a nice play. I mentioned a couple times, but that left-sided center back came through and didn't really give him a chance. But we talk about this every time we talk about him. He's adding dimensions to his game where he's going to be a superstar, and he's already sort of like an elite player on a team with Lionel Messi and Rodrigo de Paul and Busquets. Like, he's in that tier of player on this team. He's not in the best of the rest type of tier. He's with those guys because he's incredible.
I think in terms of every single aspect of his game or every single aspect of the game, he was the second best player on that pitch yesterday. I thought Busquets was slightly better than him, but Yannick Bright was just phenomenal. Do you want to know what my award for him was?
Yeah.
The numerical error award. Numerical error because he's been put in the 6 hole where everyone thinks he's a defensive midfielder. Dude, he's playing as an 8 now. He's becoming a number 8. He's proven exactly what Redondo was not. And there's a reason Redondo is no longer on this team, by the way. And it's not just Rodrigo de Paul. Yannick Bright still has a place on this team despite the fact that Rodrigo de Paul is starting every game. But
Yannick Bright has to start every game.
He's brilliant. He is fantastic. He's the best player that I've seen play for Inter Miami consistently. And, of course, not Messi, but still. He's just so good, man. And it's not just his dad saying that's my boy. It's all of us saying that's my boy because he's a homegrown player who's playing as good as any of the 5 superstars that we have on this team. Fantastic, man. Fantastic.
Yeah, Sean said, I kind of love that Scotty thinks he's EPL or Serie A ready. For everyone who didn't watch on YouTube, I've been doing sort of like an after party after the Raw reactions where I kind of just interact with the chat. We talked about Yannick Bright's sort of where he could go, and I mentioned, like, I think he's a mid-table Serie A player right now. I don't know about EPL. I didn't say that, and I don't know about the EPL. But anywhere else in Europe, he's like a top half of the table. Maybe not Champions League level yet, but like the 6th to 8th to 10th best team in any league outside of the Premier League. I think he would fit in pretty well.
He'd be so good at AC Milan, man. He'd be so good.
Well, that's high, but like if he went to Udinese, like I think he would be a starter for them, and not just a starter, but like a key player. And so I think Inter Miami should give him a nice, long, big contract, like now. And maybe his dad is here for the signing because if you're Inter Miami, I think you got to do whatever you can to keep him around if he's willing to be a part of the future here. And that includes, give him the big money. Okay. The other thing I want to say about Yannick Bright, one of the reasons Sergio Busquets can sit back into that back line is because Yannick Bright has taken a step forward as a ball progressor. You don't have to rely on Busquets to be both a receiver and a converter into sort of positive possession. Yannick Bright has taken a big part of that. And it's not just Bright. Obviously, Segovia and Rodrigo de Paul do that as well. But compared to like a Redondo and a Kramaski, like those three have all taken a step or at least Yannick Bright has taken a big step forward, and allows the three of them together to be that force, and it allows Busquets to just ping balls around, but also sit back with his positioning, and like it's all coming together. You can see it all coming together pretty nicely. Okay, what is your final award, Sor?
In my defense, I ran out of ideas. I call this the Broken Arrow Award.
I'm giving it to Sergio Busquets. I'm asking if it's Sergio Busquets because he was my third award, and I think he deserves one. But can I get a second guess, actually? The Broken Arrow Award goes to Tadeo Allende because he's an arrow. He shot out of a bow and arrow or a cannon or whatever. Like, he's so effective. If only that final little piece was working accurately, he would be devastatingly effective. But
You know what he
glass, he's
reminds me
broken.
of?
What?
Those films where there's like a giant who's like, and you're shooting arrows at the giant, and like at first it feels like the arrow's really gonna hurt him, and then it just goes pinprick on his chest or whatever and falls off. That's what Tadeo Allende feels like right now. Like he goes in the right direction. He's running with full ferocity. You're like, oh, he's finally going to put that ball in the back of the net, and then it all just fizzles out into anticlimax, and nothing happens with that attack. As I said, I ran out of ideas. I didn't know who else to give an award to. I didn't have an award name for Sergio Busquets, so I just gave it to Allende because it was easy to think about. But it's getting an issue, man. Start Fafa. Just start Fafa, please.
Well, or
Yeah,
just have Messi take his place. Like I think we
Yes.
understand the.
Yes.
Yeah, I think we understand that. I think we understand that Fafa is not really a guy that Mascherano is going to go to, and I don't think that's going to change. Like, I would be happy with Baltasar getting an opportunity. I'd be happy with Kramaski getting an opportunity. You know, I don't think Lionel Messi would be a bad person either. Like, he feels like a guy that could be impactful. So, whoever it is, like Allende, it's a shame because I think he's a good player, but his confidence is an all-time low. He's in terrible form, and when that's the case, he's impactful, but
the
he's not
problem is
devastatingly effective.
he's doing a lot of good things on the pitch, but the one thing that he's not doing well is very, very stark, and it shows exactly how problematic he can be because you need to score goals. And yesterday, if he had converted his chances in the first half, that would be a completely different second half, and it could have also gone a very different direction for Inter Miami, and then we would be definitely giving him the Heron that flew north award. So, yeah.
Yeah, I will say his best opportunity, he kind of dribbles into the box, and then Purata, again, I keep mentioning it, but he had a really nice stop on it. And I'm sure a lot of fans kind of clocked that as Allende messing up their opportunity. But I do think there was some really nice defense played on Allende, but he also had a couple where he just fumbled, and that's sort of part of his game at this point. Okay, who else? I had an award for Busquets. It was the Super Rook, because apparently that's the best piece you can have in shogi. I don't know if you know this, but in shogi you have a rook, but then you also have a super rook. It converts into a super rook, and that's the best piece.
Never played shogi. I play chess like normal people.
Well, maybe you should expand your horizons a little bit.
Well, let's not talk about chess because we all know what happens there.
Yes, you are a better chess player than I am. That's certainly true. Anyways, he was devastatingly effective both in possession and defensively. He was awesome. And now that he can be, like, if that's our new thing where he can just sit in that back line out of possession and give you that three, and it allows Fray and Jordi Alba to get forward, he becomes a star. Like, he's just so effective in that role. So, and he was very good defensively last night as well. So I thought he deserved some recognition.
Absolutely.
Anyone else you want to talk about?
No, I think we've covered quite a lot. Ustari, I thought I was a little bit confused. I almost had him down as my Heron that flew north, but then I thought it would be a little bit unfair. But he still has an error or two in him, man. It's been every single game for the last 5 games that I've thought to myself, Ustari has had one error that's led to a goal. Or he should have done much better on that goal. And that's not a good place to be with your goalkeeper. Rocco wouldn't have let that one in. So
Rocco gets a
Ustari,
clean sheet for sure.
he gets a clean sheet. Ustari, I thought, had a couple of good saves, but overall, that one goal was very poor to concede. I think that's about it. Segovia, I thought, was fine. I thought he had a really good first half, dipped in the second half, got a very early yellow card, which sort of worked against him. And that's about it. I think we've covered everyone.
I didn't think Ustari was a bad shot stopper. I thought he was just kind of average shot stopper. And then we looked at the numbers, and it turns out he's a bad shot stopper, like really bad. And so this is what you're going to get: bad shot stopping. He had a couple really nice like through balls that got the team going forward. He came out once or twice, and we know he's excellent at sort of sweeping, but he's a bad shot stopper, and like we saw it in action again. So I don't know what else to say about that. Okay, so anything else about this game you want to talk about before I ask you to just randomly see if anything's updated with this Gonzalo POV story?
I'm going to say what I literally said 30 minutes ago. We won, and that's all that matters. I'm sorry we're wearing black. This was not planned. This is not a funeral. This is a celebration. Inter Miami managed to get the result. We did well, played against a really difficult team and proved ourselves. Now, on to the next game. We won without Messi once, but I think we're going to need him against Orlando. That DC game, honestly, is a non-factor for me. They're as bad as LA Galaxy, if not worse. If we don't beat them without Messi, that's going to be a poor reflection on this team. I think we should be able to get the job done, even without Messi and Alba. It's all eyes on that Orlando game next Wednesday. Has to be it. If you don't beat Orlando for a third time, or for the first time this season, and if you lose to them for a third time, that's going to be an absolute terror of a show to do. So please, boys, please, for the final time this season, paint the town pink and not purple, please.
No, but here's the thing. This is the one that matters, right? Like, it doesn't, regular season MLS games, they're for bragging rights, but trophies, those are forever. And so if they win, all is forgiven, I think. And they get the CONCACAF champ. I mean, listen. Just win, baby, win. Just win, baby, win. That's the motto. No, the motto is go hard, but take it easy.
Go hard, but take it easy, man. We haven't been saying that enough, and that's why these boys have not been able to get results.
Dude, you pulled that out for the first time in months, and it absolutely worked. So they went hard in the beginning, and they took it easy at the
dialogue
end.
merch coming.
Okay, guys.
By the way, I'm 100% bringing that merch down. 100%.
Go for it. It's transfer deadline day. We are waiting for official confirmation on Matteo Silvetti. That has not come through yet. There may be something happening with Gonzalo Piovi. I will say the Cruz Azul coach did a press conference a couple hours ago, and he made it sound like Piovi was staying. Of course, maybe there's some breaking news over the last half an hour that changes that. We will follow that story, and maybe we'll be back later tonight. Maybe we'll be back tomorrow morning to talk about it, wrap it up. But if not, kind of an interesting, like a disappointing but not bad transfer window. It couldn't be bad with Rodrigo de Paul, and I think they have a chance to really save it if they can pull something off tonight. I guess we're just in that waiting game, man. The last couple hours of the transfer window. We'll see if they can pull it off.
I don't trust them, so I don't think they will. But if they do
you think we're going to get Silvetti?
Yeah.
I'm not even 100% convinced we're going to get Silvetti at this point.
No, I think we get Silvetti. We've already gotten Silvetti. It's just a matter of announcing it, I think. POV, I don't think so. No.
I don't know. Okay, guys. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We will be back at the very latest for the pregame show 1 hour before kickoff on Saturday. It's a very unimportant game against DC United. It is at Audi Field, but they have a new coach. They're they already started their rebuild. That feels like a game with no Messi, no Alba. Maybe you rest some of the bigger players. Maybe we get to see some faces we haven't seen in a while. I'd love an Alan Obando appearance. I'd love a Fafa Pico appearance. I'd love a David Ruiz appearance. Maybe Baltasar gets a start. Could be really fun. but also maybe we get to talk about a couple new signings. So until then, and maybe sooner, I hope you guys have a lovely night. We will see you guys next time. Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. Do us a favor and hit that like and subscribe button. Since our first viewer, sharing this with you all has been the very best part. So from the beginning until the end, thank you for being a part of this and have a wonderful day.